Alright, so this is going to be a Unity tutorial for 1.8. As you can see, I've got Discord open. We're going to go to the Unity Hub, and as you scroll through, you see there's a few tutorials, and that's because I've done this video a few times. And in 1.7, I made one too. So we're just going to go down here. The first thing you want to do is create a project. Make sure it is in the right version. See, I have two versions here. Just make sure you click the right one, and there it goes. So then you come up to here, you have a URP project selected, you have your location. I just put it in my D drive because that's an M.2, and yeah, why not? It's big, it's 2 terabytes. So we're just going to call this tutorial 1.8, just to put it somewhere. Alright, and we're just going to hit create. And while we're doing that, we're going to make sure we're over into here. As you can see, we're in the custom maps info with all our wonderful updates and screw-ups. So we go to pins. So while the project's opening, it's just going to do its thing for a little while. And while you're doing that, you can get the Onward guide downloaded. It's going to pull up a doc. We can get rid of Discord for now. And we're just going to click this, click that, and just download it. Now, I've downloaded it a few times, so while we're waiting for it to, I don't know, download or agree with itself, we're going to delete that. The post-processing volume and the example assets, they don't really matter. You don't need those. Alright. So then, first thing we need to do is go to downloads and see I've got multiple Onward packages. And that's just because I've done this video a few times. And I'm trying to go from, you know, nose to tail, beginning to end kind of thing. So that's what you would do as a new map maker. You'd go into custom map info and download it. So here we go. And then we're decompressing the package. This is all the Onward stuff. You don't have to worry about the URP stuff. If you're worried about it, like, oh, do I need to go through those conversion steps? No, don't. Just you're making a new project, start a URP project. It'll be fine. Onward Shaders are URP, so you can just convert them. And they did give us a nice little shader tool to find and replace, and I haven't quite used it because I haven't used it in a while, let's put it that way. The first time I used it, it got a chunk of stuff, and then it threw around a bunch of stuff into the wrong places, and it was just a bunch of corrections. As much as I'd like to say use that tool, sometimes if you don't know what you're doing with materials, it gets a little confusing. Yeah, you'll be asking, how do I create this, or how do I fix this a lot? Alright, so the first thing I do before I import any assets, and after I get the Onward content, is just start making you'll recognize them as folders, but they're not really folders. They're children or empties. You know, there's nothing in them. There's no components. There's just location. And we don't need to go into terminology. I'm not giving you a full Unity course. This is just how to make maps. All right, and we're going to create 3 of them. Scene. And instead of going up here and clicking create, you can also come here, click Control-C and Control-V. Control-C, Control-V are going to be one of your main tools, so make sure you use them and learn how to go forward and back. Control-C is, copy. Control-V is paste. Control-Z is back. Control-Y is forward, or undo and redo. So those are your bread and butter. Control-Z and Control-Y are really nice, especially if you misclick or, you clicked a ton of things that you wanted to move, and I clicked one thing I didn't. Control-Z it. Okay. So we got everything into its place. We got that. We got the camera. Next thing we need is asset packs. So we're just going to make this a little easier to see. And we're going to go into packs. I'm just going to get free stuff. I'm not going to... There's probably one thing I'm going to get that's not free, and I'll talk about it once we get to light mapping. But for the most part, we're just going to come in and get a few things. So, Neo Tokyo. Now, this pack is cool, and it's got all this stuff, but there's really only one thing I use from it, and it's a mesh. I like it. I like to use the mesh. I mean, there's a few things in it that you can use that's efficient, but if you're talking about the buildings, no. They are the most inefficient thing you could ever throw into VR. Some of them will reach up to like 400,000 triangles, and once we get into limits, you'll realize why that's a bad idea to invest all those triangles in one building. And so all this is going to import, and I'm just going to sit here and wait. Feel free to skip. The other reason I like this pack, just to cut it in the middle of silence, is it does come with some really nice textures, especially some higher res textures. And while you don't necessarily want to be using 8K and 4K textures all the time, being able to start with an 8K or 4K texture and then down res as you need is immensely useful, as opposed to starting with a 1K texture and realizing in VR this looks like pixelated mess because you're so close. There's definitely a lot of free packs that you'll see people use, like the RPG pack I'll import. It's okay in VR. It certainly runs very well in VR, but there's reasons for that, and a lot of it's optimization, triangles. Most of the textures are atlased, and I mean, I say quote-unquote atlased, but like some of these are very simple buildings that... and yeah, as you can see, this one has 2 stars because, I mean... It's a good pack. It looks great if you're making a 2D game, sure. But you are burning a lot of resources trying to use it. But it does look good. I mean, you can make Cyberpunk out of it if you really wanted to. It's not going to be efficient, though. And it will take a lot of work to get it most of the pack efficient. There are some small things I do like to take from it, besides the textures, mesh-wise. And as you can see how long it takes for this pack to import, yeah, it's not the most efficient thing in the world. But it does have a few things I do want to show. Mostly for don't do this reasons. And there we go. We have it imported. You can see it's right there, and there's Neo Cities. All right. We still have a few more things to bring in. And I figure we're going to do all this at once. Oh, let's go. We got some cool Skybox packs, 8K Skyboxes. So we'll bring those in. And I will say it's probably worth investing a decent amount of resources into your Skybox. Make it look pretty. If everyone looks up and all they see is pixelated nothing, no. And of course, you know, Skyboxes can be either take a while to import or not take a while depending on how big they are. Alright, there we go. We got 8K Skyboxes. And last thing we want is RPG. Actually, not the last thing, but close to last. You're going to see this one go pretty quick, because this is basically what I was talking about earlier, when it's a really nice, efficient pack, but when you look at it in VR, okay, you can see where the sacrifices were made, especially when it comes to textures. I'm pretty sure most of the textures in here, if not all of them, are 1K, or and 1080p-ish kind of thing. And while that sounds good and dandy, you really need a little bit more than that for VR. 2K is usually the standard, and that looks pretty good. You're not going to see too many pixels, and if you do, it's excusable because you have to be like using a getting up close, basically. All right, bakery. That's what we need. Now, bakery is an interesting tool that I like to use, and a bunch of other map makers like to use, because the default Unity light mappers, they do their job. We're not going to say they don't. You can certainly light your map that way, and you can make it look okay. But there's just, I feel like the normal light mappers, or the default light mappers, they put a lot of light streaks in random places, dark spots in places where there really shouldn't be that dark. And in general, just the light bake doesn't look as clean and pretty as, say, the bakery. I can certainly show you pictures on Discord if you want to message me about it, but just to see a comparison between the two. But there is a significant difference. And the biggest difference that I haven't talked about yet is time. The default Unity light mappers, if you make a big, mildly complex map and throw in a bunch of point lights or just area light, any kind of lights really, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 6 to 24 hour bakes, if not longer, depending on how good your computer is. So be prepared for that. And that's really hard to like wait a day and then realize, oh wow, I didn't hit static on this one object, let's wait another day. And it's really hard to track your changes and what they actually do to the lighting. The bakery, on the other hand, it'll bake that same map in maybe an hour. And I'm saying maybe, it's probably going to be less than an hour. It uses your GPU and CPU and neural net learning, and it's a really good tool. We don't need to go into the meat and potatoes of it, but I do recommend, if you're going to spend any money on Unity and making maps, it's on the bakery. Don't buy asset packs right away. Go with the free stuff. There's plenty of free stuff on here that you can certainly make a good looking map. I know a lot of my original maps were just free stuff, because you don't want to spend $300 and realize, wow, map making sucks. And there is also sort of a sunk cost fallacy in your head. If like you spend $300 or $400 on packs, and then you start having trouble, and you're like, wow, this isn't worth $300 worth of trouble, then yeah, you're probably going to dip out of making maps a lot sooner. So, alright, so we should... Oh, wait, no, there's one thing I want, and I do recommend everyone get it. Sun Temple or the Flooded Grounds. I do Sun Temple because it's really nice. It's a really good pack. It's, I say decently efficient, but you do need to do a little bit of work on it if you're going to try and get it onto, say, Quest, or just make an efficient map. So get a tool like Polyfew, and Polyfew, of course, that requires a lot of money for what it is, but it does do its job decently well. Now we're just going to let this run, and once it finishes, we're going to get a critical error that essentially will stop us from making the project, but I'll show you how to fix that. And you will run into this occasionally. Sun Temple and Flooded Grounds are probably the most famous one, but those are two really nice high-res, high-detail packs. They're not super detailed, but they will certainly do the job well enough that you'll be like, wow, this is free. I've bought packs that are worse than Sun Temple and Flooded Grounds, and it's like, dude, you're selling that? So we're just going to let this finish. I'll be back. Yep, and there it is, the critical error I was talking about. Now you'd be like, well, I saw red before. Wasn't that an error? No, occlusion culling's out of date. Please rebake. That doesn't matter. But guess what stays? This. So if we tried to play it, oh man, all compiler errors have to be fixed. So that pretty much stops you from making your project dead. Stops you right in your tracks of making your project. So here we go. We're going to copy. And if you don't have Visual Studio, this is probably a good reason to get it on your computer, because it is really useful to just have a free version of Visual Studio. I mean, I'm using 2017. But basically, we just copy that part right there wherever it says min attribute. You can ignore that. I mean, you could copy it over too, but this is the way, you know, just do this. It's nice and easy. Boom. And then to affect our changes, we save, we exit, and we come in, and it's going to re-import all the assets with the new references, and we just got to wait for that. But it will go pretty quick. Yep. All right. And guess what we can do now? Go into play mode. It's thinking about it. And it wanted to bring up VR too. But yes, as you can see, we've got verts and tries already. That's probably broken. We do have some batching, but whatever. It's just stuff. All right. And all right, we'll get out of play mode. All right. So first thing you want to do, I mean, we could use terrain, but terrain is, I mean, it's this big giant thing, and it's a whole smorgasbord of stuff. And if you haven't, make sure, like, if you think your project's running slow, turn off auto generate, because if you turn it on, it's going to try and create a light map. Now, it is a good thing to do at the beginning, because, like I said, the default Unity light mapper's kind of trash. So get a light map early while you need to get it done, because watch what happens when you go up to the checks for scene errors. We have 6, but we can make that 7 real quick. Yeah. Coming over here, edit, project settings. Not project settings, preferences. My bad. Yep, there it is. And we'll just clean our cache. And there goes the light map. I'll proved it to you, it's gone. See, there's no more directional light maps. And if we come up here to the onward, we'll check scene errors. Oh, we have a 7th error, which is a baked light map required. So that's that. And this is an easy way to just check that box if you want to just not wait for the Unity light mappers to do their job. Just do it early. Make sure you have a light map, and that's all you need. They should probably check for something greater than 1 megabyte, but I mean, I've gotten a few. 341 kilobytes. There you go. Well, whatever. All right. So we don't need the terrain. I really don't recommend using it unless you're more familiar with Unity. Then you'll be like, well, I would really like to use terrain because I need, like, my asset packs don't have everything I need. Okay, that's fine, but it's probably going to be a PC VR map at that point. You're going to be using a lot of resources for that terrain. All right, first thing you want to do, though, if you're not using terrain, is create a plane. Now you see, a plane, it's not the most efficient thing in the world. Really, you can use a quad. A quad is only 4, it's 2 triangles and 4 edges, so, you know, just, a quad is much more efficient, but it starts at a 90-degree angle, so it gets a little wonky. A plane is like a 10 by 10 triangle, so you get like 200 triangles, and that's much, like, you can tell just by the numbers, it's way less efficient than a quad. So we're going to use a quad for now. Sometimes it behaves, sometimes it does not. So we'll just see how it does. And that's going to be a lot of Unity. Just see if it behaves. Now, we are on the X and Y axis, but because it originated, or on the X and Z axis, but because it originated facing the X and Y axis, we need to use the X and Y because it's all relative. And there you go. Boom. We've got something that we can walk on now. We got a mesh collider. Now, you don't need to use a mesh collider on this. We can use primitive colliders, like a box collider, and basically do the same thing. Just come down and make sure it's actually on the floor, which it is. Cool. Sometimes it's a little bit above, and that does annoy me. So, all right. Now you see that some of these are purple or pink, and some of these are actually filled in normal. Well, the ones that are normal are already URP compatible. So let's say we clicked on this, I can guarantee you the shader's already URP. See, Universal Render Pipeline lit. And we do get a nice little plasticky kind of transparency texture. And if you're making a quest map, don't ever use transparencies. But we are not making a quest map right now. I'm just showing you how to make one. And of course, we can just throw on more textures. And of course, like I said, Universal Render Pipeline. But what if we went to the pink ones? Why are the pink ones this way? Oh, it's using Autodesk Interactive. And you may be like, well, is that unique to Autodesk Interactive? And the answer is no. Because if we went to standard, it does the same thing. And that's a tree cust. That's why it's doing this weird thing. But if we converted it to, say, URP, we can see what it is. We'll just go to the Onward Shaders. These are the Onward Shaders. Just type in PP. Anything with PP is the Onward Shaders. And you will be typing PP a lot. Cust. Let's see. There we go. See? Boom, boom, boom. Now you'll be like, wow, that doesn't look that great. Boom. It's lightening up. Take down that. That doesn't affect anything. Thank God it used to. And then there we go. See, we actually have a minorly decent shader or a texture there. But we certainly don't want to use this nasty tree thing. So we're going to go to, let's see, do we have brick? We got bricks solid, bricks plain, bricks plain. We'll go with bricks plain because this is a Sun Temple one. We'll go to PP because we're going to be using Onward Shaders, and because we're making a PCBR map, we're just going to do with opaque lit. If you use opaque lit for most cases, because if you do make it into a quest map, it'll automatically convert it to opaque simple lit, which is what you need for quest maps. So just stick with lit. So start there and work down. So we can put anything we want. Spawns a brick. We'll tile it up to 100 by 100. No, that's too big. We'll go 50 by 50. And if you come up close, it's like, well, we still have some stuff to correct. Take down the smoothness because it's brick. There you go. That actually doesn't look too bad, right? Now, the one thing we are missing on the Onward Shaders is height maps. And if you go to Simple Lit, you'll miss normals, and detail maps are gone. And those are all very useful things, and F for them because, God, I miss them. But hopefully we get them back. The devs certainly say they want them back, and I hope they want them back. One thing that we need to put that into scene, not Geo. All right, cool. Geo is for mostly props and just the level, basically, the stuff that you interact with. All right. So other things we can do. Well, we can copy this. We'll leave that as 200, but we'll put that as 20. And I'm just going to show you what using a texture on multiple things will do. Put that on 0. And then I'm going to use Shift V instead of Control V. And Shift V is our Vertex Snap. And you see I just immediately snapped it to a vertex. And I can go to any edge, that one, and just pull it down. And that makes it a lot easier to put edges together and not be able to see them. But, I mean, there will be instances where, like, you know, you can see through the crack in VR. Now, these are using the same material. And they're tiled exactly the same. And a material is not beholden to the asset it's on. It's not saying, like, oh, this quad is now this brick material. No. Think of it as paint. You know, if you mix blue and yellow, you're going to get some weird greenish thing. And you're not going to be able, like, if that's all the paint you got, you're putting it everywhere. So you put it on that, you put it on that, but this is going to be green, this is going to be this. Tiling doesn't really translate to paint metaphors, but the tiling will be the same as my point. See, 50 by 50. And of course we can correct it by bringing this down to 10. And that actually looks pretty decent, but then it fucked that up. So, pardon my French. So, what you want to do is try and use as little textures as textures or materials as possible, while also tiling them correctly. So, this is a bit of a puzzle you need to put together. Is how can I use as little textures as possible, while also maintaining visual, decency. If it looks bad and stretched out like that, don't use it. You need to figure another way to make it look decent. I'll just throw ground mat because it's basically kind of like concrete. We'll go to the Onward Shaders, opaque lit, and you see it changes because the Onward Shaders do stuff and things. And there you go. It's not horrid, but it is not. It is horrid, but okay. That didn't turn into the concrete texture I want. We'll go with another bricks plane. Put it to opaque lit. Okay. Bricks. Now, when you're placing materials, those are textures on a base map. Those aren't affected by any of these other settings. So you can use this brick material up here if you want. So we'll actually do that right now, just to prove my point. Spawns a brick. Or is it spawns a brick? Yeah, it spawns a brick. Okay. Now we're going to tile it. So our X is longer than our Y. So boom, that's an easy way. Of course, you can also do math. So 20 and 2. Boom, and that, see, that looks infinitely better. The resolution's scaled. Everything looks decent there. So, okay. Now, another thing you want to do is make sure these are all set to static. And you'll be like, why is that? And that's because, A, that's how your light mapper knows to bake a light map on it. You can see scale in light map, blah, 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 blah. If you unclick it, that all disappears. So, make sure everything's set to static. Do it on the prefab if you can. And that's usually the way I like to do it, is just go to the prefab, make sure everything is static, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Instead of place walls everywhere. We'll bring in what I want from KB. We'll create a prefab variant. You never want to place a model on your map. Don't do that. It will look like it's working and doing great things, but you want to work within the prefabs. You don't want to work with models. Alright, so we're just going to place this on the map, and you'll notice everything is purple, and we still have Snap on. So just hit Shift-V to get out of Snap. We'll go into the prefab, and the only thing I want from this, really, I mean, there's a couple things in here I like to save, but to be honest, we're just going to use the base today. Of course, we need to unpack our prefab, because if you create a prefab variant of a model, you need to unpack it. So there you go. Boom, nuke it. Now, what are we doing down here? Now, I do like to take another tool to this and sort of atlas it all together, because it's only 2 textures and they really don't look too bad no matter which way you atlas it. But for the most part, we can just leave this. We're not going to get into atlasing and optimization. There's YouTube videos we can talk about on Discord, but for the most part, we're not going to worry about it. Oh, I need a drink. I did this video last night and it went to 3 hours. So my voice is a little raw this morning. And as you see, we can zoom in. Now sometimes, especially for someone who hasn't used Unity, your prefabs will come in and there'll be lighting. I can't do it now. I can't replicate it. Maybe they corrected it in this version. I'm still learning the new engine. But there's really not much to it. But it does have some nice, features that help your quality of life. So KBN, KBN NEC concrete wall, concrete accent. Let's see, did that work out? Now, you notice that was a bit of a guess and check. Not the most efficient way to do things, so I'll go back and just show you a good way to do this. See, we know what the albedo is. It's going to take us to it. There we go, and we actually did get it wrong. Wow. So PP lit, and we are going to move this up to here. We're going to bring the shine down because it's concrete. We don't need it to shine too much. Brighten it up. Now we're going to go to shader graphs, street tiles. Boom. Alright. Just going to brighten all these up, make them look pretty. Merge them together. There you go. Alright. So, what can we do with this? I mean, there's a lot. So we're just going to box everything in because that's a good, easy way to keep your players just focused on the game and not worried about, the walls around them or the level around them. When you get a little better at maps, you can do outside, like, terrain and details that are cool. But for now, we're just making a simple arena map just to show. Now, you can't see through the backs of quads, so that's kind of a bit of a pain, but quads are very efficient and they're worth the pain. Alright, so as you can see when we get in, boom, boom, boom. It all doesn't look great, but once we bake it, it will be better. Okay, hold on, we need to fix one texture and the quads. So, yep, there we go. And lighten it up. There you go. That looks infinitely better because it looks the same as the floor. Oh, we missed one, didn't we? No. I guess we just got to bake it in some shadow. All right. So we're just going to place these around. Let's say boom, boom, boom. And we will do a 180. Pull it over. Pull it up. Just sort of make kind of a street. I don't know. We're just kind of screwing around, aren't we? And we will... Here, if you hold Control and click the rotate, you can actually do a fixed rotate. So you can do 180 manual rotates pretty easily. What else do we want to do to this? Control C, Control V. Now, I'm going to show you in a second why I really like to use these, because it comes down to triangles, really, when it comes to efficiency and whether you really want to use a pack or not, or an asset or not. There we go. That's what I... is that what I wanted? We'll do... I think 0 is what I want. There you go. We'll just go back to the way it was. Nope. Alright. Now then. We have a general layout. As you can see, there's a main street, there's a cross street, and then there's 2 diagonal streets. Kind of an interesting layout, but there's nothing on it. So we're going to just... I'm going to show you the power of prefabs. And first off, we're going to show you why I like to use this base. Because if you come to it, it's only 186 tries. You can use this a ton of times, and you're not going to be blowing up your maps with a ton of, verts and tries and batching. So it's a good thing to use. I'm going to go back to prefabs. All right, so that's why I like this stuff, and the lower the tries, the better. I mean, it looks good, it does its job, the UVs are great, and it bakes well. A lot of this is going to be, you just feeling it out, whether the map you're making is actually going to work. Whether you can actually make it with the assets you have, whether you can, just anything. All right, so another thing I'm going to show you is I'm only going to use one building. And you'll be like, why are you using only one building, Snooper? You can use a ton of buildings, and the answer is you don't want to use a ton of unique things. There's just... It'll just invite batching, it'll invite lots of draw calls, and just make a map even more inefficient than it could be. And of course, in real life, we manufacture stuff all the time. So seeing, say, 4 hangars that are slightly rusted, yeah, the rust probably shouldn't look the same in every building, but you can overlook that. It's rust. But you generally can do multiple of the same building over and over again. So we got hangar 4, it's all ready. The only thing we're missing is a mesh collider, and of course it's not static. So we're gonna go in, fix those 2 things. I know this sounds like a lot for each asset to make sure, but you get used to it. You'll be like, oh, okay, I see it. I see why this isn't doing its thing that I need it to do. So we're gonna pull this. Let's see what's on the other side of this. It's just a back. Yeah, it is. Okay. So we're gonna go to the top. We're gonna flip that. Because in general, see 2 buildings so far. They don't look too bad, right? And we're just gonna go with a 0, right? There we go. That doesn't look too bad. We got a little square there. And let's go for something a little non-standard 90. So we're gonna rotate. Try and line it up with this side of the street. You know, just give it a little something something that's non 90 degrees. Because if you just go 90, 90, 90, it's a very boring map. It's not going to be something people really want to play too much of. And that's not bad. I mean, if you come down, look from this little square thing, yeah, there's a lot to do, a lot to deal with. Now, we can place one more. And we'll do 90-degree turn. Okay, there we go. Now, we did this all on the prefab level, within the prefab level, so everything on that building's fixed. Then we placed it on top of a prefab that's already fixed. Oh, it's not already fixed. All right, you saw that? You see that? Some of it's set to static, some of it's not. This is a good example of how to set everything to static within a prefab. And you just change the children there. And guess what? All those things that weren't static before are now static. Okay. So, and there we go. We have a map. Now, we made prefabs of all this, so they're all going to be exactly the same. So if you want to go around and slightly turn them, that's fine. It's not going to affect performance too much. Nothing unusual is going to happen. Let's put it that way. All right. So we've got a general map layout. I mean, do you want me to put down cover? I'm not going to put down cover, but you can put down cover there. You can do a whole bunch of things, but this is an okay layout. You know, it's sort of like a little, I don't know, mechanics facility. There's garages everywhere. Now, if you notice, you get down onto the player level, it actually doesn't look too odd. It does look like a mechanics facility. Now, that's something we need to fix. Always try and come down to the player's level and check things so that, you know, if it's off or for some reason it's not behaving, which I'm pretty sure right now it is not behaving. As you can see, that one's a bit strange. Oh, I know what I did. I moved the actual pad a while ago. And that's a good example of why you need to work in prefabs. Because if you don't, you're going to have to fix stuff like this. And honestly, the real answer, nuked. Get a prefab that actually you didn't alter, and roll it on over. And you can even go further by just copying the positions, and then you'll be exactly back where you were. But as you can see now, we don't have an overhanging building. So if we get down to the player level and look around, yeah, that kind of looks like a little facility. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's super good, but it's a map. It's a layout. It's mildly complex, and I think players might play it. I'm obviously not going to add this map or anything like that to the game. This is just an example, but like we can do other things, like, because we're making a garage, they obviously have gas, right? So we need something here. So, and I mean, these are easy ones to find. I mean, oil tank, this guy actually, like, hey, he labeled his not he labeled his in a way that's not insane. And some people certainly do, especially when you get to like Neo Tokyo, which is the one we're talking about, the pads, and I can pull in a building and show you exactly why. And majority of this Neo Tokyo pack is completely ruined. There you go. That's 100,000 tries. This building, 24,000 tries. And that doesn't sound like a lot compared to the last one, right? But 24,000 tries, that's usually your expensive building you're throwing into your map. You're not spending 100,000 tries on one building. Don't. And if, there's also easier ways to make a building that looks like that. That's not so many fucking tries. Pardon my French. So, but as you can see, some of these get rather large in ways like, there's one in here that's like 400,000. Let's see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, as you can see, that one was 200,000. It's this one. 100,000. But you get my point. They're very inefficient packs. Alright. Alright. So, now that we have, I would consider it a map, I guess. I don't know. We'll throw all this stuff into Geo, because it's technically just geography to me. And we will start on Onward stuff. So the first thing you want to do is come up here, check scene for errors. Now we already have a light map, but for right now we technically don't have a light map for all of this stuff though. So we can ignore that. Oh, I exited out. We need game mode, we need a tent, we need a level descriptor, we need one more game mode, and a map quad and directional light with it set to mixed. So the first thing you want to do is hit the directional light. Boom. One thing you do want to make sure is, because you're, like, the purpose of a light bake or a light map is to give variation to what you're seeing and playing in. So don't do any extreme, like, angles like 15 degrees or something. Always try and stick, I guess, below 45. So, like, if we went 66, see, it goes deeper. And, of course, don't go head on above, because you want shadows. You want the player to see these things. Because, I mean, you spent all this time, you might as well. And as you can see, the light changes every time I change the direction. That's because we're working primarily, like, solely off of real time right now, and that's because there's no light map baked. All right. So the first thing we do, I like to come in here and place my ammo boxes first, just because I don't really get too strategic with my ammo boxes. I just take an ammo box, throw it down. Now you'll notice it wasn't made on perfect zero, so you can't just throw it on there and it'll be on the train. You actually have to go down. You can't even, like, shift control, which, you know, keeps it across this plane. You can't fix it that way, so basically just you gotta sink it a little bit and then make sure it's going through the floor. So I try and get close and see a little bar there. And we have one ammo box, so you need 4 on the map, but because we did it on prefab and we have 6 prefabs that it's connected to, we now have 6 ammo boxes. So I'll show you 1, 2, and then there'll be 1 for each one. All right. Next thing we want to do is throw on the level descriptor, create our shared settings. Next thing you want to do is double click these, and you're going to put in your title. So this is tutorial, and, you know, T-map, because it's a tutorial map. And if this is empty, that means the map hasn't been published yet, or it's not saving the ID. And so every time you'd publish this map, even though you published it before, it would generate a new ID and it'd have to get reviewed by the devs again. So you, in my expert opinion, always double check your IDs, and it is a pain in the butt to go in. We're just not going to show that, are we? Yeah, fine. Yeah, but this is where you'd go in. I mean, my name's Joe. But that's where you go in and upload your map. Of course, make sure you're setting your scene. So this is right now, this is called sample scene. So first thing we should do right now while we're looking at it is save it as tutorial scene. And of course, if we come over to the PC build, there's tutorial scene. And if we come down to the quest build, tutorial scene. Now the quest build will pull different things, so try and do your research. We're not going to go into it now because that would be a much longer video, and I don't feel like talking for 3 hours again. So the level descriptor's done. We have our shared settings. We can actually... Interesting. Create shared settings sample scene. I think it'll be fine because we're pulling in the scene to the right log. Yeah, it'll be fine. It's just I don't like that. Always save your scene before you do that then. It could cause some issues. Alright, so onward stuff. Onward stuff. Oh, one thing we haven't done is the Skybox, because it is a Skybox matte. That's the default Skybox. I have 8K textures, so we can put on some cool stuff like that. You know, you can, there's other things I have that are cool, like that one. There you go. Like if we go down into the player level. Here, see, that actually doesn't look too bad. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, there you go. Oh, look at that. Nice and somewhat volumetric, and it keeps the sun in the sky and everything. So, I'll keep that one. That one's fine. Okay. Just double checking my settings. You want to make sure you're on progressive GPU. Okay. And if you want to see your baked light maps, that's how you go see them, and you can start narrowing down what's causing stray light maps that way. All right, back to Onward stuff. I know I got distracted there for a second, but that was kind of key and crucial. So we'll go back to prefabs. Area of reverb, it's just a box. You designate an area where there's going to be reverb. Invisible wall, it's exactly what it says. You know, you put a wall up. Players can't go past it, but they can shoot through it. So it is useful for, like, stairs. I know some people just like to hit convex and make the mesh simpler, and then it turns into a ramp but looks like a stair. That works. It does okay. It's actually pretty good if, like, say you're doing a stairwell in a hallway. But for the most part, you want to use the invisible walls as your ramp, because then if, say, someone's taken up position by the stairs but, like, across the stairs, they're not going up, they're trying to, like, put a bipod on it and shoot through the cracks, then convex will mess things up and they're going to hate you and you're going to get complaints from the players. And those are always fun because, you know, players have sane requests all the time. All right. What I'm messing with right now is the map quad. This is what's going to generate your tablet picture and your build, or your board picture. So when teams strategize about your map, this is what it's going to be. Try and get it as close to the bounds of your map as you can. You want it as small as possible so players can actually use the thing. Anyone who's played 1.8 and saw the boards and their super zoomed out maps know how useless those were. So make sure your map quad is nice and close. Players will love it, and it'll definitely cut down on the amount of complaining you'll get. Another thing that's easy to add is the tent. You can't mess with it. You can't add stuff to it. You can throw stuff into the scene because the tent is there. I know it just says, or it shows a clear square box, but there is assets there that the devs set. And so if you take, say, you know, this prefab, copied it over and moved it into here, guess what? It's going to be in the middle of the tent, these buildings. So you can alter the tent. It's just, it's going to be a very hit or miss thing, and it is somewhere in the center. So good luck if you want to mess with it. I know the devs have personally espoused they don't like people messing with the tent. I don't know if don't like isn't the right word, but it's more like they'd prefer people not do it. But it is what it is. You have your fun. You're building. I'm going to place 4 spawns. These 2, the first thing we need to do, make sure you're doing your order of operations right. So we're going to call this attacker spawn. And when we get to assault, you'll see why I'm calling them attacker. And then the other ones I'm going to call defender. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V to copy it. As you can see, we copied it. So we're going to come through, just select all the stuff that's Onward and pull it into Onward. Now then, we're going to take these, boom, and pull these to the other side. And lift them up and rotate them 180 degrees. Now, if you were to do something like, let's see, let's label these the right thing though. Unity engine post. Oh, because I hit Control V. I was wondering what was going on there. I'm like, did I mess up something? No, it's just Control V. Always make sure you're double checking, because this is an innocent way to hit Control V and kind of mess things up. But if you do it with, say, an asset or a whole prefab, I can't spell defender right now, you're gonna basically create Z fighting, which is 2 textures fighting over the same space, if that makes sense. They're gonna flicker and basically give any player that looks at it that has epilepsy a seizure. So make sure you're not hitting V twice, and if you do, try and get that asset out of there one way. And I mean, I can show you, like, Control C, Control V. In the editor, it looks like nothing's there, but if we pull it, it's there. It is 100% there. So these 2 would fight. Even though they're the same texture, they would fight. So, yeah, that's the world you're going to be living in now. The other thing we need to add is the damage volume. This is supposed to kill players, but as of right now, which is this date, October 16th, 2020, 6:51, pretty sure players can just walk on it. but that will be subject to change. Alright, and you just put it below the level so that when players fall through it, they hit it, and the intended function is they die. You can use it for other things, like Evo put it on an animation of a shark, so that if anyone went into the water and got hit by the shark, they died. And you can do interesting stuff like that, because it does react on collision, so have fun with that. You can also muck around with whatever you want. Other things, Onward Audio. I'm not a big fan of global ambience, but this is all subject to change very soon. They did add a ton of stuff, but to be honest, global audio ambience is going to go all over the map, regardless of whether you're in a building or out of a building, and that's just not immersive, so I never use global ambience. We don't even have control of the sound anymore, so we can't like change the volume and say, oh, I would like the global ambience of Arctic in the background, but I just want a light breeze kind of sound. So you can't even slow it down, speed it up, change the bass. You get pre-selection. And the devs, I understand their thought process for it. I know some sound engineers, and they express similar beliefs of like, oh, well, if you want a quieter sound or a different sound, or a quieter sound or a different bass in a sound, it should just be a different sound. And it's like, well, you're right, but you're wrong. You know, like you can save a lot of memory by, say, taking water drip and throwing it around the map with different volumes and whatnot, and it creates a soundscape as opposed to like I hear the same thing everywhere at the same volume at the same cadence, and it's like, what are we doing? So that's Onward Audio in my small rant. I apologize. But I know how to do audio, and it frustrates me that I can't just go do it. I have to sit here and beg, kind of. Like, hey, please, sir, may I have some water drips? Alright, so we're just going to add assault or game mode. So the first thing we're going to do is free roam, because we need free roam. Like, that's the one game mode you definitely need. And so you can do one spawn. Yeah, we'll just do one, because I mean, it's free roam. You don't need variation in it. The only reason I'm doing two is just for lols. All right, so game mode free roam is done. Other easy ones is gun game, because it's literally just assigned spawns. This one, you want to create your own spawn point, and then parse these out into different places, because otherwise everyone in gun games is going to spawn in these little clusters, and they will hate you, because it's just going to turn into, you know, a Mexican shootout at close range with everyone shooting everyone else in the head, just a circular firing squad, and it's like, no. So we'll call this gun game spawn. And of course you can try and mix it up a little bit, because if you've played gun game, you understand that, you know, it does randomize. So if you put enough spawns on there, probability states that they're not always going to spawn next to each other, but they will hate you when it does happen. So you can just come here and take each individual spawn point and throw it out and do different stuff with it. And anyways, we don't have to go through the full thing. So we'll take gun game spawn and add it to gun game. I generally do like 2 or 3 spawns and then parse them out like that, just to give everyone a little bit of a breather on repeating spawns. Other easy ones, Spec Ops, another just spawns, so we'll just do 1 and 1. These are games like, they'll have a zombie mode, or I think 1 in the chamber. I'm not too up on 1 in the chamber, because the one time I played it, it's not that much fun to only have 1 bullet, unless we're doing like some weird Civil War or American Revolution thing where we're all using muskets, or Napoleon War thing for our European friends. So 1 in the chamber is another easy one. FF spawns. So, I mean, you can just use gun game spawn, because it's essentially the same thing. I guess 1 in the chamber got its own now. Alright, so now we're down to sort of the weird ones. So we got Escort. It's going to need an objective. So, objective Escort. And we're just going to throw it in there. And of course, Spawn position A, spawn position B. Oh, what? Okay. Objective spawn A and B transforms. Interesting. I'm a little unfamiliar with that, but I don't think this should affect things. I really am not big up on escort modes because it's no offense to anyone who loves escort. Ugh, I'm not a fan. Like, it's just, let's protect this one dude from random bullets. And if you're playing with good players, they're just going to snipe him or pound him down with LMG fire. And at that point, it's like, well, this wasn't that fun. All right, so game mode escort. We have one objective. Let's assign it. And you're going to want more than one objective because you want at least like 2 or 3. But we're just, for the sake of time, we're just moving through these. There are some, like Assault gets a little weird on the spawns where it's like, you can only have 2 spawns. And it's like, well, are you sure? And they are pretty sure you can only have 2 spawns. But in my opinion, that mode could have a few extra spawns. All right, so this one's all set up. So we're going to throw in Objective Hunt. That one you don't have to do much to. So we'll go back to game modes, throw in game mode Hunt. You just throw it on the map, add the objective. And we need Objective Hunt. Didn't I throw it on the map? Could have sworn I threw Hunt on the map. Let's see. Well, if you can't find something, always type in Hunt. See, it exists. Now the question is, where does it exist? Okay, I'm just being blind. There you go. It wasn't in the right hierarchy. I was looking in the wrong place. So we'll go 2. We'll just put in 2 spawns, attacker and defender. Or attacker and tacker. Alright. So next is Uplink. Everyone loves Uplink, so I think everyone knows how it should be set up, but we'll just do a little throw. Now this is another asset that's not set to 0, so it's always going to be floating if you just set it like this. A bit of a pain point, but just rotate it down a few positions and you'll be fine. And then, of course, we're going to go to game mode uplink, add it. You generally want to do this after you place all your uplinks and spawns, but because we're only placing 1, it's fine. Of course, we can do this, and it'll randomize, so attackers. And you want to just make sure, oh wait, not defender. You want to make sure that they're sort of opposite. You don't want to make them looking at each other when they spawn, because that's just inviting 2 teams pre-firing to each other, and that's A, not a fun game, and B, it'll just be quick and over. And it all comes down to who fires the trigger out of spawn first, and that's not fun. You want to block these spawns. So like all these buildings, it requires them to run down Main Street, and that's Main Street can be a pre-fire zone. Bazaar has a Main Street that's a pre-fire zone, and I'd say you can allow it. I normally say try and prevent as much pre-fire zones as possible, but because it's such a big, wide street and you don't necessarily have to go there, it's not like Suburbia's pre-fire zones where it's like you can get boxed into spawn by 2 people with LMGs for a good 30 to 40 seconds. If you're not careful. All right, so uplink is set up. I think that is the last one besides assault. Oh no, we have the co-op game modes, and oh, okay, they're already there. That's why they're not letting me throw that on. There we go. Okay, so before you do this, make sure you bake the Nav Mesh, because this is what tells your AI to go places. And it also gives you a good idea of where players can and cannot go, because like you see all this, where there's a clear definition. There's not a nav mesh going between these 2. That means the players typically will not be able to get up that. So what you want to do is come here, take all your prefabs, and just sink them a little bit more. And then bake. Boom. And as you can see, nav mesh is fine. And I mean, you could play with the step height and the agent radius and the agent height and max slope to sort of jimmy a map to work with it. But like, no, don't do that. And as you can see, This is actually a good example. A nav mesh wasn't placed around this, and you'll be like, why did that happen? Well, let's go to our inspector tab. Let's put that over there. It's not static. An object needs to be static to be to be taken into account by the nav mesh. So we're just going to come into the prefab, and we're going to open the oil tank prefab just to make sure it propagates throughout everything. And there you go. That's not too bad. And guess what? Static now. We'll go to one that we didn't touch. Static now. Okay. We're going to bake. And there you go. As you can see, it's now going around. So that's the subtle nuances of the nav mesh. Now, you can also do the static thing last and just boom, and you'll see it says yes, change children, and everything within the geo folder will then become static. Granted, it will mess with the prefab static. It'll give it a unique identifier, so you can't alter it through the prefab, but honestly, there's going to be so few things on your map that aren't static within this folder. It really should be 0, but you can put a few dynamic objects. Shh, don't say anything. So it's up to you, but really everything is going to be static, in my opinion, unless you're doing like an animation or you somehow got grabbables to work, which I like grabbables. They were cool, like cans and rocks. But all right. Come in, throw in the defender spawns, and there's only defenders because you can be Marsoc, you can be Volk on evac. You're just hunting enemies until you get on the chopper. Get on the chopper. Alright, so objective hunt, you just throw it on and assign spawns, because all you're doing is going around hunting people. You're not going anywhere, you're not looking for anything, you're not getting on a helicopter, so done. Alright, last game mode is Assault. And this is the one that usually trips people up a little bit. And from what I'm being told, it might change in the future. I know the devs have mentioned it in one of their updates that they'd like to change Assault. I know they mentioned it in general a couple times when people complained about Assault. So, yeah, this information is subject to change. So we're just going to place an Assault uplink. And it looks exactly like the other uplink. And it's got all the fun things you need to do to it, like sinking it into the ground a bit. But it's got all this stuff, so we're going to immediately come here and assign our defender spawns. And this is why we called them defenders and attackers, because you really want to organize these. And if you don't, well, you're in for a world of pain, because it turns into like an SAT or ACT question. Like, so, if this team spawns here, where can they not go? And where would you place those boundaries? See, because we got boundaries we need to place. And yeah, in the document it says something like, that A, makes sense, and then the next statement gets confusing in between the two. You're like, what am I supposed to do? And here, I'm going to show you. There's an easy way to do this. So you come here, you place the assault boundary, make it big, so 20, and 20. We want to cover the back of the map. We don't want somehow the enemy to get behind him and start spawn killing. Alright, so then cannot vertex snap this, so we want it a little bit bigger, so 220. There you go. Alright, look at you. Now we have a boundary. Now this is going to be called defender boundary. You'll be like, why is this the defender boundary? We're over the attacker spawns? We should be over the attacker spawns. At least that's the perspective I'm doing it from. Let's just double check, because it does get confusing. Yeah, okay. We are over the attacker spawns. Basically, the way you want to sound it out is the attackers spawn here, and they can't go there. So we're just going to copy this, bring this over, call this attacker boundary. We'll call it attacker bounds. And this is going to be defender bound. And we're just going to pull this up so it covers both of them. Make sure it covers all the map side. Now, obviously, you want to be a little more picky about where you put these spawns, because this is all about preventing spawn killing, and that's not going to do it in this case. But as you can see, we got our defender spawns here. So if we went to defender spawns, it takes us here. Defenders spawn here. They're not affected by the attacker boundary, but they are affected by that boundary, so they can't go to the attacker spawns. Same with the attackers. The attackers spawn here, they can't go here. And of course, we need to make that even bigger now. 50, there we go. Just get it through the back of the map. Now let's go to check scene for errors. Oh, defender objective uplink. Defenders need exactly one spawn system for this game mode. And it's always, oh, defenders can only have one spawn. There you go. That's what I was trying to think of. And we will actually make this defenders. We will make this attacker. We will make this attacker. All right. Everything is golden. You can only have one defending spawn, which, to be honest, I don't exactly get. You kind of want to mix that up. In my head, I know that, okay, the spawn is there, or the objective's there. They're going to spawn over there. You know, is it quick spawn? Is it like how many games does it take for you to really memorize where they're going to be spawning on an objective for just one spawn? So I honestly think they should let us do 2, maybe 3, just to give it a little bit of variability for where the defenders can spawn and go. But that's my own personal opinion, and until the devs change it, we can't do anything about it. All right, so we're going to save our project. There is one more thing we need to do. Missing. Oh, we never assigned our boundaries, so there's a few more things we need to do. And as you can see, I'm kind of messing this up a little bit, but you always need to keep checking, because you're never going to remember all of it off the top of your head. Where is the objective assault? And you can certainly organize these into better categories where you know, the objectives are in something, and the game modes are in something, the spawns are in something, but in the interest of time, we're just moving on. Alright, so remember, the defenders spawn here, and they can't go here, so it's attacker bound, right? And always double check, because, I mean, even I get it wrong. Oh, that's defender bound. Okay, so defender bound. So we actually did label these correctly. Sometimes I'll label them backwards, and then it's just like, Alright, so defender bound. So the defending team spawns here, and they can't go there. And attacker bound, which is here. So the attacker spawn there and can't go here. And it really needs to be something like this, because you want to make sure spawn killing doesn't happen. But in the interest of time, we're just moving through the map. Now, one thing we do need to do, because while we do have our Nav Mesh and the AI will spawn, well, they won't spawn quite yet, we need to add the AI spawns. Boom. That's an AI spawn. And you come in, we have the game mode type, so we're going to start with Hunt. We're going to do Rifle Squad. And we're just going to throw these around in random places. So, there. In Control-C and Control-V all day long. Just over and over. One tip is to, if you're not trying to hide the AI spawn points, like behind rooms or doors where the players can't go, always try and put the AI spawn points out of view of the original spawn point, because then it stops players from getting gunned down right on the start. Alright, and another thing I like to do, just for the lulz, is to copy and V, and then we're like, sometimes they'll stack up spawns and you'll run into groups of like 20 of them. So I don't know if it exactly works anymore with 1.8, but I have seen a few groups stack up occasionally, and I'm going to keep doing it because I think that's more fun than fighting groups of 4. So, and what I'm doing now is creating assault squad groups in between all of these. So it'll basically randomize whether rifle or assault's going to show up. And then the other thing, to tag in our other AI mode, which is evac, we just do the same thing. Now, there are other loadouts like Sniper Squad and Light Squad. Light Squad, I'm not a fan of just because they don't have a lot of stuff. They use lower-end weapons. And Sniper Squad uses snipers, but they only appear in the more difficult game modes, from what I understand. I mean, that could have changed. The devs could have changed it and not told us. I don't know, but from my understanding, that's what it's doing. So we're just going to throw these into there. So the AI will spawn. But the one thing we do need to get them to actually move is AI support. And this is, it's pathing, but it's not pathing. It's more of like suggestions. for the AI, like, hey, if you're not doing anything, you want to walk this way? You want to go this way? Because if you don't include this, it's not like they're not going to spawn or not do anything. They're just going to sort of stand around and, you know, wait for you to do something. And then they'll try and hunt you down. And to be honest, sometimes that's a good thing. I know the devs are probably cringing at that statement, but, like, you can make some pretty cool maps that almost feel like single-player levels if you just don't give them pathing. Because, like, they will come hunt you if you shoot and make noise. Like, they will hear you, and they will find you, and they will shoot you. Like, the AI support doesn't do anything more than just say, hey, you got nothing else to do? Go this way. Or, oh, you can't find the player and you need a new path? Okay, you go this way. So it's more of like suggestions and guidelines, or then guidelines. It's not law. Like, they're not going to travel this specific path up and down, so you don't need to grid out the whole map. Just, you know, make sure that they can go a little bit everywhere. And then they'll fill in the gaps. They're decent enough. I was about to say people, but they're not people. The AI thinks it's people. But yeah, you just go through, and of course make sure you save. Do the whole map. And of course, I like to throw down intersection points occasionally. This just gives them a little more variability in their movements. Overwatch points are for if, say, you somehow make it up there, or can make a path up there that the AI can go to. They'll view it as an actual place they can snipe. Boom. That's that. I'm not going to finish the nav map because this is going to be a real map. I'm not going to turn it in. We're going to move on to the last parting, which is lighting. All right. So we're going to save the nav map, make sure it's all there, and just get out of there. And it is a little possessive. So we're going to come in, and we're going to create a point light. Now, because I am using the bakery, there's a few extra steps to do. So if you were to just do this in Unity, you just throw in this, you turn it to baked, you make sure it's always baked. I hope one day we can get to mixed or real-time lighting, but we ain't there yet. So 40. If you click, I'm going to have to add a bakery component. Bakery can create these themselves, so bakery point light. Where'd it go? But anyways, you don't need to worry about that unless you're buying the bakery. Just make sure these all sort of match. Yeah. Especially make them matching color. But we're just going to do a ton of different colors, to be honest. One way to make the match is because it gives you the hex. Go and copy it. And just bring it down here, and it'll go immediately to that color. So we're going to throw that there. Set it to static. Alright. Because you want these to be baked in, and we're going to just do different stiff. So copy. Post. Okay. We're going to do blue. Now, if you do two different colors and you are using the bakery component on top of this, it's basically like blending two different colors, like red and blue are going to create purple. Welcome back to elementary school. All right, so we want that there, and we're going to create one more light over here. That's going to be green, just to show. I just want to show light variation. That's the whole point of this. And of course, we're going to crank this up to 200. Not 200. We'll do 100 because 100 or 200 might blow everything out. There you go. All right, so let's make sure this is actually green. I didn't copy it. Always copy your hex. All right. So we have 3 various colored point lights. All right. Now, one thing you do want to do, but you can't do it now. We're going to move on to light probes, and that's going to be the last thing we do, because we're essentially at the point where you could submit your... always double check your game modes. I'm going to blame this on rushing through all of this because I don't feel like talking for 3 hours, which is what the first video was. I reached 3.5 hours or 2.5 hours or something, and oh, my voice. So, objective evac. Always just come up and check scene errors. There you go. No errors have been done. There you go. All right. So the onward stuff is good. We have our nav mesh. If you're making a PC map, you can come over here, click Occlusion Bank, and this will help optimize your map so everything isn't being rendered at once. Occlusion calling is pretty useful. The smaller and simpler the map, the faster the occlusion bank is, the more complex it is. Well, you're probably going to be waiting 5 minutes. All right, so have most everything. Now, one thing you do want to make sure of is everything is on the ground. Cool, cool, cool. As you can see, there's a bit of lighting going on, but that's real-time lighting from them just being placed earlier in Unity, not updating. Ignore it. It'll update once we do the bake. All right. So we could come over here and click this button, generate lighting, but I won't. We're just gonna, I mean, at this point, we're just gonna use the bakery because it is so quick. There's no reason to use anything else, really. I know people are like, I don't want to spend $60 on something that only puts light on a map. And it's like, well, if you're going to be making more than one map in Unity, you're saving hours of your life. Like, I'm literally saving your life right now. You're getting time back by buying the bakery, as opposed to like just hanging out for a day and hoping to God that you did everything right, which you didn't. I guarantee you did not. All right, so we're just going to go through all these. I do full lighting now because subtractive and indirect. Subtractive is more for like stylized map, and indirect is just sort of a, I don't like it. But we can go into the nitty gritty of what those are in Discord, not in this video. We're not trying to pad out the time. We're not trying to get ads. I just want to inform you guys what to do, and so I don't get a ton of DMs about, hey, this simple thing that I just missed over. You know, watch the video. It'll be fine. You don't have to talk to me anymore. All right, so we come into here, clear, and anything that doesn't clear is a critical error, and you do need to fix. But if it's just random stuff like that, meh. All right, so we'll save. Before we always render, we can pull up the emissive boost. There's no emissives, I don't think, but just in case they are, I want you to see them. All right. One thing we do need is a skylight. But that's for the bakery. This is another bakery thing. All the bakery components, this is if you get the bakery. So this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Yeah, okay. Put it into the scene. Because the skylight just provides the bakery. It's for the bakery. Ignore it. If you're not using it, we don't need to get into it. But you're going to hit lighting. You're going to go through. You don't have. We don't have shadow mask yet. The devs are waiting on that. And once we get shadow mask back, oh, things are going to look so much better. It's going to be glorious. You can mess with these, but for the most part, they're really. If you know what they're doing, certainly mess with them. But if you're spending 18 hours on a bake, stick to daytime until you understand what the lighting is doing. All right, so everything's good. Everything's set. Let's double check a few things to make sure it's set to static. Damage volume does not need to be set to static. I mean, it could be. It doesn't really matter. It's not moving. But if you're like animating it, you're not going to set it to static. All right, so everything's good. We're going to click render. Now, the bakery will go pretty quickly because I'm not using anything crazy. I didn't pull in any of the insane Sun Temple assets. This is just going to charge on through. As you can see, we're not even seeing individual percentages. We're seeing chunks. And I guarantee you we're going to have multiple light maps and all those very bad things that we shouldn't be doing that increase batching, but I'm not going to get into optimization. Monner, make that video. My voice hurts. Or Koi's, if you would like to teach people, maybe. This is Discord. I'm just looking at it, seeing what everyone's doing today. Hidden World, sup, Monner. I will be back when this bake is done, which really should be sooner rather than later. Just in case you're concerned that it's been stuck at 77%, this is actually, it's doing specific things within the bake. This isn't one uniform action being performed throughout. So certain parts will take a little bit longer, especially when it comes to denoising the scene. We can get into what all these terms mean, but we're not going to do it here. And there you go. As you can see, it's baked. It looks okay. It's super blown out. But that's because we have a ton of these point lights, and I'm pretty sure it's because of this green point light. But as you can see, we've got, we can play with that. It doesn't do anything. We can play with the intensity multiplier. It doesn't do anything. Everything's baked on. And we'll come over here to this point light, move it. See, it's not changing. It's not doing anything strange. It's just, it's baked on this nice red light. And if you come around to the corner, you see there's blue. You see there's white. And I mean, I tried to overexpose a little bit so we could get those colors out, but it does look pretty nice, right? I mean, it's not the perfect thing in the world, and we're not going to go back and correct it, but I mean, you can do it like that. You generally don't want to do pure white because you will get weird overexposure effects, but, oh, sorry. But yes, that's how you do lighting. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about before I would say you're ready to turn in your map is come in and do a light probe group. Now, let's see, because we're working off 0. I mean, I'm not insane. I'm not working off 20 or something. That was identifier. There you go. All right. Now, see, there's variations in light here. For light probes, what you generally want to do, and you can certainly get a tool. You saw when I was opening my asset packs, I have a tool called Magic Light Probes. It's a pretty good tool, but it does have some issues, especially if you don't know what you're doing with them. So we're just going to come here and pull this up. Boom. Just cover the whole area. One thing we do want to do. What did I click on? Yeah, if you're not sure what you clicked on, always Control Z back and then do it so you make sure you're doing it. Control C, Control V. So you can click over here and click duplicate. But honestly, use your hotkeys. Don't make it harder for yourself. And clicking is the hard way. I know it sounds weird, but the mouse is the hard way to do all this. And I wish there was a way to like use hotkeys to select these, because these are probably the most painful thing in the world. But once you get used to it, it's not too bad. Did we select everything? I don't think we did. Did we actually? Boom, boom. Oh yeah, we did. Okay. And see, we're just stretching it across this nice long line down here, and it'll just do the variation. I mean, you can stop here because it changes to green, and then do that. In general, where there's any major light changes, this is what you want to be doing. All right, and I mean, just repeat that for all of these, and there you go. You've got light probes, and of course you're gonna have to go back and bake them. You always need to render your light probes. Actually, I can show you real quick what light probes can and cannot do. Yeah, we need a bake first then. Because any new object we add, like if we said added a cube with the default white texture, it would actually not be static, and it would be only reacting to the real-time light or the light probes. But since there's no real-time light, it's only going to be reacting to the light probes. And that's the same for player models and guns and all their little dynamic utilities. So just extend that rule out to anything that's dynamic, that's not static. I know, I gotta say the stupid parts out loud. But anything that's dynamic will generally pick up light probes. There are some fun exceptions, especially when it comes to, I want to say animations, but if you do them right, it's fine. It's just, it gets a little wonky. But you're not going to be doing a ton of animations for your quest build or even for the PCVR maps because you're going to be focusing on looks first off. And if you add an animation in there, that's like a large chunk of what you could be using to make a beautiful map to use, to make like a stupid flying spaceship or something. Who would do that? Who'd spend those resources on a stupid flying spaceship? So, as you can see, it actually got to 82% before clocking over, and that's because we added the light probes to the bakery, and the bakery's now taking them into account. So the percentage is different. And that's how you kind of know that, oh, wow, this is actually working, as opposed to, oh, wow, Unity, you're pooping the bed now. So we're just going to wait, because this is where it's going to sit on denoising for a little while. See, OBS is still recording. Cool. This whole time I was sitting there thinking, did I hit record? That would suck. I don't want to do this a third time. There you go. See, it's finishing. There's one tool at the end I do want to show off as the very, very last thing that we have everything on the map placed. Alright, where's my light probe group? That's the first thing I want to find, though, because I do want to show you light probes and their actions. Alright, so we're going to create 3D object cube. Pull it up. Might have to rebake again. Well, it should be changing with the green. But it is affected by the light probe. Like, you can see the lines there. It's not showing a lot of the green, which is unfortunate. But you can see there's a tint to the green, actually. Let's see if we can get this to something that's not gray. Maybe lower. I mean, it is being affected by the light probes. It's just unfortunate that it's not showing itself being affected by the light probes. And I think it's the material. Let's see. Well, light probes are always hit or miss, but it is working in a sense. Like, it is being detected by the light probes. Unfortunately, it's not producing the green light. Like, I want to say another bake would do it, but we don't have time. Either way, that is how you do light probes. I'm sure a bake would fix it, but I don't want to spend any more time on it because my voice hurts. Alright, last thing I do want to show off is Resource Checker, because it's a free tool, and I probably should have gotten it in the beginning, but we'll talk about it now since everything's on the map. It's hard to show what it's doing when there's nothing there. Alright, so Resource Checker. Yep, there it is. And what it does is it basically calculates all the textures. You can go to materials, you can go to meshes, you can go to missing, Nav Mesh helpers missing, whatever. But you can see how much each texture costs. You can see 4K textures get really expensive. You can see that the 8K or the bigger than 4K textures get very expensive, 128 megabytes. So this map is already, let's see, 160 or 170, 80, almost 100, 200 megabytes on textures alone. And I guarantee you it would be like 210-ish, just because everything else really doesn't cost as much as the textures. Verts are only 2,000, so that's not bad. I mean, this could be a quest map in and of itself. It's just, you know, I didn't put much thought into it. I made it in an hour video in front of you. So, but that's how you make an Onward map at this point. Save, go to Onward Launcher, click Build. If you click Build, it will just basically start processing this whole thing, and it'll probably take a little bit forever. If you want to update, I don't exactly want to log in into my dashboard and show you all the stuff on the other side of my password. So, but basically you go in, add your little description of the map, your thumbnail, your name of the map, you know, any post-processing volumes. And the post-processing volumes, that's on you to try, because they either look good or they don't. And I'm not going to say one's the one you should always pick, because it depends on your lighting and what map you're doing. And they did a decent job on the post-processing volumes that if they still work, I'd say try them out. This is Snooper. I mean, this is going to eventually go to a local export build. And if you need locations of that, DM me in Discord, and I'll certainly let you know where that is. But, yeah, I mean, we don't need to wait for this. That's a map, that's Onward, that's how you build it. And, of course, you can do as much complexity as you want, just within resource limits. This is your canvas. You know, this is your world. Create it. But, yeah, this is Snooper Facts. If you need any questions, hit up any of the map makers, because they definitely have some good info. Even the ones that haven't made 1.8 maps, they definitely know Unity enough to help you. So, you guys have a good day. Bye.